much, Mr. Robert Marsh. It is an honor and pleasure to be with all of you on this panel. I would like to congratulate Dr. Abdul Basit Syed, the chairman of World Humanitarian Drive, for the excellent organization of the event this year's Trilateral Global Summit. And it is really an honor for me to be part of the session on strengthening the global economy. How we see from Sarajevo and from Bosnia the current situation in the world is that we are actually in the 2021, we are at the crossroads. We are at the crossroads, and I think events of this nature are actually very encouraging, because we have two paths. We have either this civilizational dialogue, or we have a path of civilizational clash. We have a path of coexistence, or we have a path of confrontation. We have a path of trade, peace, and cooperation, and we also have a path of destruction, war, and confrontation. We are living in a smaller world, and with all the technology and all the advancements, we are daily seeing the interconnectivity of one to other. So the concepts like this one, which is the concept of trade and peace, which is initiated by Dr. Abdul Basit Syed, can help, especially a region like ours, like Balkans, because by trading with a fair share to support each other with mutual respect and integrity, supports the concepts of world peace and stability and the strengthening of the economy. We are becoming so close to each other, but at the same time, we still have concepts which are Stone Age concepts, like us against them. We have technology that is changing rapidly, but we have the human mind that is still captive in some Middle Ages. So we should really not remain enslaved with these concepts like us against them, but rather the concepts that are a mindset of Middle Ages. At that time, there were no mobile phones, there was no Google, and it is understandable that people could be manipulated with. But today, with the technology drive, how come that our mindsets are not following the path of development as the technology is? We really have to endorse this technology and access to information and knowledge that would remain these blockage and from our mindsets. And we should look at ways. I was listening to the presentation from Nigeria. It is really impressive to look at the world from these two different angles. But shouldn't we actually look at the ways of connecting Europe and Africa? Shouldn't we have a dream of connecting these two continents the same way Istanbul was connected, connected to continents of Europe and Asia with an underground tunnels? I mean, we should have these dreams that we should connect even further and not disconnect from each other. Of course, we have a challenge of COVID and how we dealt with COVID. And is COVID actually turning us into closed castles, or COVID is actually an indication how interconnected we are? Now in Bosnia, what really happens in Wuhan, in China, is affecting a small village in Bosnia within weeks. You know, so we are so much connected in this world with each other. And COVID is actually a direction that should connect us even further. We see that we cannot disconnect. You do not have castles that are separated from the rest of the world. This is not doable. And we should stop dreaming of establishing these castles. But for this, we have to have leadership, which is visionary leadership, like After World War II, you know, you had a vision of Europe, Professor Arben Malai was talking about the vision of European Union that is actually an inspiration for us. But you had visionary leaders at that time, you know, who were talking, France and Germany was fighting, and then suddenly they were talking about the big interconnectivity between them and the joint country and the joint continent. So this was possible with the visionary leaders. We have to have visionary leaders today which can look beyond the mountains and see the future in a more creative way and not be part of all these current landscape of fears, of understandings and mainstream public opinion. They cannot be part of that. We have to have leaders that can see beyond the mountains and beyond different borders. The leaders that can, for example, we are talking about trade. We're talking about free trade, the free movement of goods around the world. We have to have leaders which also talk about free movement of people. Now, why do we have visas and why do we have these restrictions of movement of people, and at the same time we are promoting movement of goods? Why are goods? Why is a ton of sugar or of wheat has more freedom than me as a human being? Why cannot I move? But we really have, of course, this would go into various kind of fears of, you know, people, but we have to have leaders that can look ahead of time and say, well, let's dream of the world in which we are not only talking of a common market for goods, but we will be also talking of a common market of labor. Why wouldn't we have a free supply and demand of labor globally? Why do we have these restrictions? Why do we have all these fears? But for this, you have to have really visionary leaders that can look beyond our current time. And we in Bosnia and Balkans, like the Professor Arben mentioned, we were an example. And I am ashamed that my region is used as a concept like Balkanization. What means Balkanization? Means divisions, fightings, wars, decadence. You know, we went through, Yugoslavia was the most prosperous country in Eastern Europe. And now we are the backward country of Eastern Europe because of these fears, because of us against them. Because of this, we paid a very heavy price. And if we do not change the mindset of Europe today also, which I do not believe is out of that mindset, we have Europe turning into right, which is scary. It is scary because you are going into a same path that we used to go in early 90s. And if we do not find a solution for Balkans, which would be based on meritocracy, we have to have an Americanization of Balkans. We have to have these values of meritocracy. Unless you can implement these values in Bosnia, for example, in Sarajevo, which has been a place of real coexistence for 500 years of Catholics, of Orthodox Christians, of Muslims. We lived here 500 years together. And this is not the same like other parts of Europe where you have immigrants coming in. We have indigenous people who have been living here for 500 years, arm to arm with each other. If we do not have a solution for Balkans, if Europe does not help creating a good solution for these people. I was sitting with two Republican congressmen from the United States last week, and I was saying, look, I was sitting together with the Croat and the Serb with them, and I said, can you tell me which one of us is a Serb and a Croat and a Bosnian? If you cannot, then can you imagine what kind of problem Europe will have? Because Europe is not only multi-religious, it is also multi-ethnic, multi-racial. In Bosnia, we are not multiracial, we are of the same race. We are of different ethnicities, but we are of the same race. And I would challenge any one of you to know by our look, by our language, by our appearance, the difference between us. but we still had a problem. And if you cannot restore this cooperation in Bosnia, how are you seeing the future of Paris? If me and a Catholic who have been, and Orthodox have been living here for 500 years, if we do not have an example of coexistence, how will you see a coexistence between a Senegalese and a Frenchman and an Algerian all together living with French citizenship in Paris? How do you see? If we do not have a solution here, if we do not have a different value set up here, we will have Balkanization of Europe everywhere else. And then we are just going backwards. We are not advancing as the technology is. We're going to have many more Srebrenicas around the world. You will have Srebrenicas. And what we should promote is to having different kind of Dubais and Singapores and Dohas around the world, not Srebrenica. So it should start from here, where the coexistence is indigenous, where it lived for hundreds of years together. But unfortunately, I do not see Europe with its rightist turns. I do not see them mature enough. We need to have more meritocracy and Americanization of this Eastern Europe, rather than we have to see Europeanization of Eastern Europe. Because meritocracy should be the only merit on which we should judge people and create our society. So what we are doing in Bosnia for last 10 years, we have been promoting ideas of trade and coexistence. We are organizing big events. We're bringing all the leaders together on the Sarajevo Business Forum, all the leaders from Serbia and Croatia. We all gather together and we say, let's look at each other as opportunity, not as a threat. And we have been trying to do this through Sarajevo Business Forum, through Sarajevo Halal Fair, through Sarajevo Innovation Fair. We are trying to create a vision of Sarajevo as one of the meeting points between East and West. We are trying to envision Sarajevo as a model of coexistence, even though we were the model of destruction, war, and retrograde.
Thank you so much.
So I will just end with one sentence. We have to look into the future, because history does not end with us. We continue to write it. Thank you very much, Mr. Robin, and thank you for your patience.